Greetings, Gentile viewers and gentle viewers. This is the Mazecast episode where we talk exclusively about bumbershoots. And if anybody refers to it other than a bumbershoot, it's $1 in the jar.
Now, is it okay to use the word parasol since that is sort of taxonomically a different thing, or is that also outlawed?
No, anything except the U word.
Okay, only the U word is banned. Got it. Perfectly good.
Yeah. I'm
sure we don't need to clarify for the dear listener which U word we're talking about. You will figure it out.
I think we have a few theories here. There's only really 4 of these objects in the maze. One of them is in the prologue, one of them is in room 8, room 10, and room 42.
With debatably a 5th one occurring as a drawing also in room 8, if you want
yes.
to think that.
Yeah,
right.
I got that one. Yeah, it's not a real one, but it's inside the picture. So I had a theory that I posted actually in 2016. Just a spoiler alert, I don't think these are terribly good solutions, but it's worth considering, I guess. So the name of the article is "The U Word Tells the Truth." So in room 8, I say that the tip is hidden and the handle is shaped like an L. So I'm not sure why I said the tip was hidden. I can't remember what I was thinking of at the time. But as Thale Crater might like, I use numerology here, and I placed L as the 12th letter of the alphabet, which is the correct door.
Well, and maybe even Sarah or somebody else has, I remember reading about that, like somebody has mentioned in the past, like it could be the obscuring of the tip could be intentional so as to make sure that your attention is drawn to the handle instead.
Oh, yes.
Right, because you always want the umbrella to be a pointer, right? And so hiding the tip makes it not something that is pointing.
The bumbershoot?
Oh my God.
I might have also just said it myself.
The object, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Alex. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So in room 10, it points, I think it's on the bed, and it points to 41. There's a few other things in that room that point to 41. I think the paintbrush, or not paintbrush, there's something else. I think it's the baton or something. Yeah. I don't have the book in front of me right now, but there's a couple of things that point to that door, I think, and the bumbershoot is one of them. So what do you guys think about that? Is it worthy?
I've always favored, for 10, I have to say that I've always held a real soft spot in my heart for the avoiding paint drops from the 41 sign solution. Vince has raised the objection to that, which I think is fair, that it looks more as though it's placed as it is because somebody was about to paint the blank sign and left off doing so. But I feel like it's also credible that, like, based on the position of the ladder, you could imagine that the one that had just been painted prior was the 41 sign and that it was still wet. And just in general, I don't know, that's just that's one of my own little weak spots. I think that's just such a cute little solution, even if it doesn't feel as rock solid as Tree 40 or what have you.
Yeah, and it is noteworthy that in room 10, this is the only instance, I think, where they pick up and bring with them anything from any of the rooms. So one of them has picked up they don't explicitly say that they've taken it with them, but it does say one picked up the umbrella. It may rain where we're going. So the implication is that they're bringing that umbrella with them, which is something that I don't think happens anywhere else.
Indeed, in other rooms, they specifically in the bear room, they specifically don't want to leave anything behind.
Right.
But I don't know that there's any other room where they take something with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I think in that room, it seems to be pretty clearly pointed right at that little sunbeam heading into 41. And as you say, we've got a trail of pointers from the baton to the ribbon to the bedpost to the baton sitting on the step stool. So there's a bunch of things that seem like pointers in that room. So it seems reasonable that the umbrella would be another one of those. Well, the other idea people have put forth in that room is that the bedposts are 4 things, and then the umbrella is, an analogous additional things. So the bedposts are 4 and the umbrella is 1. And
We don't need to belabor the weakness of that, although maybe there's some way of shoring it up that hasn't been discovered yet, but clearly that could signal 14 as well as it could signal 14.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you could argue that that's why you also have the umbrella pointing, right?
I think Andrew makes a good point too, with the paint, having painted 41 last, that being like the one that sticks out.
I have a great fondness for that solution, but I don't know if it's really all that defensible. But as far as like things that that Dave G has offered, among others in the past, that's one of the ones that I most fond of.
Well, I think it's hard to place, like otherwise there's a lot of 1 and 4 clues, so it's hard to place whether it's 41 or 14. So
a lot of
you're looking for tiebreakers at this point.
This is part of my difficulty with like pointing based solutions, is that there's an awful lot of pointing, like the balletic figures or the dancing figures have plenty of pointing going on, that it's like you can work that into the trail, but or maybe are they supposed to point somewhere else? This is why I have to admit, Sarah, always a little bit leery of like, you know, things are pointing in directions and like forming chains, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm not saying any of this is like, yeah, I'm not saying any of this is rock solid or anything. It just, I mean, it's, if you're putting together an argument that the umbrellas are always reliable indicators, this seems to be a room where it could reasonably hold up, I guess.
Sure.
Do you want to keep going with that, Alex?
Yeah, sure. So in room 42, if the 3 objects in the umbrella stand, this is bad. If the 3 objects in the umbrella stand represent
the what stand, Alex?
What's that? Well, I'm quoting my own article, so okay, fine, I won't use it.
We all need to have like shots lined up for this game.
You censored the title of your article. You said "you" word in the title. You were reciting it out.
Okay,
so
yeah.
you the rule.
If the 3 objects in the bumbershoot stand represent the doors on the facing wall, the umbrella, the bumbershoot corresponds to 4. So
I love that. I'd never seen that before tonight, but I love the visual symmetry of the little 3 arches with the 3 doors. It's just a shame that the other 2 aren't accounted for in some way. Like if there were a second elephant's leg and it was like half hidden behind the sign or something, so that there were only 2 toes visible, then I would think that like that would be, there could really be something there. But I still like the resonance there a lot.
Definitely. And this umbrella is the one that looks like a bird head.
This what is?
Umbrella, fine, umbrella. It's going to be between me and Sarah, tied for how many pieces.
Yeah, it's got sort of a Mary Poppins parrot head on it, this one does.
Yeah.
It's very fun, isn't it?
In room 42, it's, you know, it's got the little head and the eye. Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like, you know, again, if you're thinking of pointing, you would immediately think, oh, it's pointing to 37 with its beak. But, you know, if it's got a little eye, maybe the eye is, anyway. I'm not going to go down that road because people will just get angry.
Oh, no, please, I'm curious. I don't know what you mean. What about the eye? What would that signify?
Well,
in Fantasyland, where all of this was true, what would that signify? I'm just giving. I'm not being judgmental. I'm giving you the hedge so that you don't have to be too married to this.
No, I'm really not. But it's like the eye almost looks like it could be looking back, right?
Oh,
like
sure.
Sort of, you know, I mean, it has no pupil, so that's sort of a meaningless thing to say. But of course, because I want it to be looking back, it's easy for me to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is the first time I'm noticing this too. Is it's next to like what looks like a baton, the same baton in room 10.
Yeah.
I never really noticed that before. I don't know if it means anything, if they're related.
Yeah, that's weird. They look like pins to me, or at least this one really looks like a pin to me.
Sure. I was going to make a point about, and I had nowhere to go with this, but I was going into this. I was going to make an observation about how room 8 seems to share a higher than average number of objects with other rooms, but I feel like actually 42 gives it a run for its money between the bumbershoot, the baton, which I didn't think of, and the boot, if you accept the theory that this boot is the counterpart of the broken one at the bottom of the slide, then 42 also has a lot of objects, and even the hat, I suppose, a lot of objects that resonate with other objects elsewhere in the maze.
Yeah, and I think the coat rack also really resonates with room 23, which is a room that resonates with 42 in a lot of other ways. And it's also a room where an umbrella doesn't appear, but a bumbershoot is mentioned. Literally a bumbershoot is mentioned. This is the room where they say we should have brought that bumbershoot with us from the coat room. Right. And it's, it's the room. Like this all kind of, it's all tantalizing, right? Because it all seems to tie in with the weather theme. They're always talking about it. It's going to rain, or, the Minotaur's relationship with the sun, they're glaring at each other right at the beginning. And there's all kinds of different interactions with the sun throughout. And here we have another room where weather is important, where there's weather going on outside, and we have the storm, we have the sun, we have a mention of the bumbershoot.
Yeah, this is a point that I was thinking of, because it has been mentioned somewhere on the Abyss. I don't remember if this was one of your guys' ideas. It was maybe Vince's idea or White Raven's idea or something like that, about the fact that maybe there's no other significance to the umbrella, but that it's like this running gag of them always preparing for rain and it never actually raining. However, what I noticed as I was looking through again is that in room 6, the quote from room 6, which is one of the underground rooms, the one with the important notice, there's this quote that says, "Standing in the light, one of them put his hand out. I think it may be raining out there." And the guide doesn't correct that person. Nobody corrects that person. So I'm not sure if I'm on board with interpretations that play up the umbrella as just a big joke because, haha, it turns out never to be actually raining. I think 6 gives evidence that at least at a certain point in the spatio-temporal snarl of this place, it would actually be raining. And so the umbrella thing doesn't seem like as much of a punchline, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that was White Raven's idea, was that it was just sort of a running theme or gag that didn't necessarily have any meaning. 'Cause, I remember we were talking about the idea about the umbrellas telling the truth, and he was on the fence about it too, because his idea was that it was more just a running gag, as you say.
Well, there's nothing that indicates that rain is bad really in Maze, like apart from maybe room 23 where the picture is over the doors, like in when there's a thunderstorm, and that's not necessarily the best door to take, but it's not the worst, I guess. It's not the right way, but you're not going to die if you take that door.
But the one with the sun shining brightly over it is the correct door, which does kind of make you think. That does kind of...
Yeah, I've got my own weird theories about that one, but yeah, I guess...
Not consistent, right? Because like a lot of the loop rooms have sort of stormy things going on. But then you have room, what is it, 31? What's the one with Manson in it? I always forget. 19? I think it's 19. Which is like very bright and sunny, where you have blinding sunlight, but that's actually quite a dangerous room, because you can, it's deep in the loop and you can get into the trap from there. So.
Oh yeah, certainly you can.
I've had a look at some of the Minotaur relationships, and Vince has found some things, and there's nothing very concrete, but there's some stuff that sort of connects the Minotaur with being some kind of sun god, which is actually sort of surprising because they seem to be more antagonists in this book, based on the beginning of the book. But I'm going to read this straight out of Wikipedia. The ultimate source on, Cretan history. Some modern mythologists regard the Minotaur as a solar personification and a Minoan adaptation of the Baal Moloch of the Phoenicians. I'm sorry, that's not really very relevant to the sun, but according to A.B. Cook, the Minos and Minotaur were different forms of the same personage representing the sun god of the Cretans, who depicted the sun as a bull. anyway, there's more of that and just sort of relating the Minotaur with the sun.
And do you think, like, so you point to room 19 as like maybe being supposed to cue us with the notion of a sun god or something, with this mysterious statue with its sun-looking scepter, or what?
I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of more of a general trying to tease out the meaning and importance of the sun and weather, because, you know, it's important in a lot of rooms to the maze, and Manson, you know, points out the weather and whether it's very sunny, and, you know, then you also have room 4 where you have the foolish face of the sun over the door, and you know, there's a lot throughout the maze about rain and sun, and, you know, the umbrella, whose name means shadow, right? So it's like the opposite. I was sort of thinking about that too. Sorry, the U word and the meaning of the word.
Shadow. Yeah, and then, but somebody has raised the point that, you know, it takes only a small twist of the lens to reanalyze an umbrella as a parasol, and then it has an association with sun instead. In fact, the soul in the name. So yeah, like that's a tough complication if you want to position umbrellas as being sort of anti-sun, but parasols are in some way, even though they're supposed to defend you from the sun, but they are associated with the sun in ways that
I would even go to say that the etymology of the word umbrella comes from umbra, which is shadow. Yeah. So even the primary word is associated with shade. Well, shadow, which is from light rather than from rain. So I don't know. I guess that was his first association in language.
Well, one way or the other, you do associate parasols with rainy days and sunny days. You do associate parasols with sunny days, and you associate umbrellas with days that are specifically not sunny. And that's what tough in my mind to sort of put umbrellas decisively on either side of that, you know, either end of that spectrum, because.
And there's only one parasol in Maze. It's the one that the clown is holding in 8, right? Or is there another?
Yeah, and they're you know, they're really they're shown kind of pointing in opposite directions, and it's kind of interesting, like dark and light. I mean, I don't know how much credence you guys put in thinking about that room as like a metaphor for the earth and the rotation of the earth and the sun being the light bulb and all that stuff.
I don't know how much, but could you recap a little bit of that? The only thing I can think, looking at it right offhand, is that maybe the pole is supposed to be like one of the 2 poles of the earth or something, but other than that.
Yeah, so, well, that's, so the room is tilted, right? And we measured the angle between the pole and the post, where you can actually see it sort of looks like an angle demarcated out there. And it is, whatever it is 23 degrees, right? So it is the pretty close to the actual tilt of the Earth.
Which angle?
So Earth is tilted, right? Its rotation it's tilted.
Right, but I mean, which angle did you measure in the drawing?
Oh,
I can't remember. I used one of those mathematical tools. I forget what it's called, but it was an angle measuring tool. It was like
so it's the angle of the barbershop pole against the column that's behind it?
Yeah, like literally where the lines are drawn as though in a triangle.
For sure,
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then the sun, the sun being the light bulb, the whole room being described as a vaulted chamber lit by a single bulb, which you can kind of read as a metaphor for, you know, the sun and the vaulted sky.
Sure.
You know, you've got the 2 bowls, sort of, is that a hemisphere thing? Whatever. I find it pretty compelling, but that's me.
No, I like it.
12 months in the year.
But, I mean, talking about the parasol and the umbrella being opposites, like sun and shade, thinking about sun and darkness, that sort of plays into the same kind of theme. Half the earth being in darkness and half being in light.
Sure.
Anyway, we're getting off topic, but my main point was just that the umbrella does seem to be part of this larger theme that is interwoven through Maze, and whether that's meaningful or whether that's just, you know, a device Manson used for atmosphere. I don't know. But the umbrella seems weighted with meaning. I mean, it's one of the things that people remember about Maze is the umbrella. So I think that's why we keep trying to probe for meaning.
Exactly. Did we? Was there more? Was there another segment, Alex, of your thing, or did we reach the end of that?
The last umbrella appears in the prologue, which is the beginning, and it's standing up against the wall, so it doesn't assume a position. It's not pointing to a door, which I think every other one is kind of insinuating either pointing or directly pointing, or like the one in 8 where it's hidden but it still has a weird shape.
Yeah, I actually really like the umbrella here with the door, which, you know, really looks to me like an intentional pi, right? Like the Greek letter pi. Mm-hmm. And then you have the R, and they're arranged in the shape where you would write pi R, which is
and there's a square in the door,
which is the circumference of half a circle, right? And I like this because, you know, thinking about Manson's rules in his world, right? Like you have to have a door indicator to be able to go through it. This door doesn't have a number or anything. It just says the next page. So how are you going to have a clue for that on the page? But instead, I think that he is just cluing the semicircle using pi r.
I really love the door umbrella connection here. I do have to admit, I think I have a problem with this that I'm not sure anyone has mentioned on the Abyss, which is it does kind of feel like if you want to charge that semicircle arch above the door with meaning, it feels like it's a really hard, like it feels very hard to avoid what seems like a natural next step, which is that, okay, if this semicircle is an important thing that I meant to notice and process and respond to, look at how the light that's coming in from that semicircle is illuminating the knob on the door to room 41, and indeed it's still doing so in the depiction of room 1 itself from a different angle. Once again, even though the light of the semicircle is now hitting doors 41 and 21, it is still only capturing the doorknob of 41. So all I mean to say is that it's unsettling to me that it's hard to figure out how to resist the step of like, oh, the semicircle is important. The illumination coming from it that's pointing out door 41 must be important too, especially because, you know, illumination has been credibly put forward as a potential important factor in rooms like room 23, the broken classroom that we talked about before. So like, yeah, that would be my main sort of, I'd be interested to know what you would say about.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I kind of think they're two different things, right? I think that what's happening above the door within the room that we're in, which in the prologue is, you know, the real world. We're in the real world looking at the label above the door, which is the next page, and there's no number. Instead of a number, we have this empty semicircle. And so to me, that's what's standing in for the number. What I think is happening with the sun illuminating that handle, I think that handle, you know, with its prominent ring, like I think that is like, that's more bull imagery. It's got little horns, it's got a bull ring. And then in room 1, it talks about the sun glaring at, you know, the sun glared at me through the door. So I think that is a guide hint.
So tell me more about what you mean by those little horns. You mean the little bumps at the top of each plate? Yeah. Sure. Okay.
They seem intentional to me. Like it's not like screaming in your face, a little bull shape. Like, you know, if Vincent was here, he would be just crapping all over this.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's what I think.
I'm going to channel Vince here and say, I don't know about that. But, you know, you're entitled.
You wouldn't say, I don't know about that. You'd say, you're crazy and wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be polite.
Oh, thank you.
I will certainly give you this. I don't know about the horns, but I'll give you this. The fact that the entire ring of that doorknob is visible within this picture on the prologue feels
Right.
really intentional, because I always have to look like 3 times to make sure that that isn't an error, and that the
Yes.
doorknob isn't accidentally superimposed over the actual front door that we're about to walk into. It takes me so many times to look again and parse the lines and see that, oh, okay, no, okay, so it's not overlapping with any of the actual front doorway, which maybe, of course, you could imagine that that's just, that could just have been an oversight on his part, that it was even that easy to misread it. But you could also imagine, like, if he really wanted that ring to be important somehow, sure, you could imagine him, positioning things, how, like, spacing things out however he needed to, so as to get the entire ring there onto the page. So I'll give you that, because it certainly is extremely prominent.
Yeah, it is, and it seems very like deliberately outlined in a very clear and firm way, compared to some other elements, like how the rocks of the wall are outlined or whatever. It seems very deliberately outlined. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in room 1 and throughout the maze with ring and the word ring and the concept of ring, used in different ways too. So I don't know. And I don't know how much of this is just Manson having fun with words and the different meanings of words. And I guess this is something I also think about in the context of Roussel, that author we talked about in the last Mazecast, who, really liked to play with words as a way of generating imagery. And so to me, it makes sense that maybe, Manson wanted to emphasize the word ring and then use that in as many different ways as he could think of, as just a way of creating varied, interesting, surreal imagery.
I want to look now for cases of ring in the text. I can imagine there must be 1 or 2 that have to do with a bell ringing, but are there others that pertain to other senses of the word ring?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of depictions of rings in different ways. There's the ring in room 33, right? Like a literal signet ring or whatever it is. There's a telephone that is ringing, in room 20 that stops when they get in there. There's the ringing of the bell in room 26. There's rings in room 41, rings on the idol, like on the idol's head, there's rings. Like there's several instances of target looking things that have rings on them.
There's hair ring in the pitchfork room, in the stop sign room.
Right.
Women's jewelry, rather.
Yeah, and the ringing of the bell in 11, we have the word ring, and the giant bell in room 11.
Yeah, certainly.
And, in the prologue, the circling and dividing wording, which is sort of strange, I don't know. Maybe the whole idea of, and there's Saturn's rings, right? Saturn's rings in room 26. Another instance of permanent ring.
Certainly.
Anyway, we're talking about bumbershoots, but I don't know.
That one almost certainly feels intentional, as just some kind of, like, that seems like an intentional resonance between the bell that's right there in that room and, like, for sure, like, I'm not, this is not a rebuke, but rather, like, I do feel like there's probably something intentional there about the rings and the bell that can be wrong. And
yeah, I think so.
Called out in the text as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of, so we've gone through all the bumbershoots in the book. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that they are all indicators of the correct door, but I mean.
Yeah, but it's based on what I've come up with and whether you agree with them or not. Like, for example, the one in 8 where the handle is shaped like an L. That's a little shaky. L equals 12. Like I don't know. That's a little bit of reverse engineering, I think, on my part. That's how I came up with that, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, it's an unusual shape, isn't it?
Well, I mean, my only argument was that you can't see the tip, so it's not pointing, but it's still there. So what's notable about it? Well, the shape of the handle. But you could say the same about the one in room 4. It's shaped like a parrot, like Mary Poppins' umbrella or
A
whatever.
parrot door. It's very
Well, what
odd.
does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that every bumbershoot has a different shaped handle throughout their different appearances, obviously that's probably just mostly for the sake of visual variety, but there could be something to, yeah, like the idea that this shape of this handle that was chosen in this room 8, where it resembles the letter L, could be intentional because no other.
I'm against what Thale Kreider says, which is there's numbers everywhere, and it's like, where does it stop, right? Okay, so L is the shape of the handle, and what about all the other number combinations you can come up with? That it's too much. It's a slippery slope. So for that reason, I nix my own answer. Room 10, I'm gonna nix this one too because it's pointing at 41, but so is the baton. So are a few other things. I don't know. I think it's shaky. And like, we haven't figured out whether they relate to each other or if they're just, single clues, or if they relate to other things in the room that the rooms that they're in. Like, I don't know, room 8, there's 2 umbrellas really. One in the picture. Do they relate to each other? Who knows?
I'll say what my main sort of problem is with pointing solutions is that it seems as though, and I'm trying to figure out which room it is, but the Cask of Amontillado room, for example, has one bottle, one single inverted bottle. This is room 39, that is clearly pointing toward room 11, and yet that's not the correct answer. You know what I mean?
Oh, but Andrew, that's because wine is bad in the story of Cask of Amontillado.
No, really?
Yeah, well, plus the bottles are all empty. So, in my opinion, empty of clues.
No, it's true. I mean, pointing, like there's things pointing everywhere. It's not, but it's not like, so it's, I guess I'm just saying it's not, okay. If you decide that the bumbershoot is reliable, if for some reason it's always reliable, we're just trying to decide, can we argue that Manson intended it to be a reliable indicator? So it's not pointing to the wrong door. We don't have an instance of an umbrella that is pointing to the wrong door.
Sure.
Or at least we can, I guess we arguably do in room 42, which you can kind of explain away. It's pretty shaky.
I mean, 42.
The thing is, like, why would he pick the umbrella? What is the importance of the umbrella? And Dave, so Dave Gentile thought that you would put rain umbrella right together and anagram that to get I rare bull man.
Yeah, I rare.
Right. Which is a little forced. It's no F-hour tree. It is forced, but it is a tempting word for anagramming, and it does contain the word bull on its own. So umbrella does contain the word bull.
Yeah, it's certainly more tempting for anagrams than it is for, I mean, there's no way it's going to be able to function in something like tree F-hour, because those are simple words, and like, so umbrella can't, so certainly if you want wordplay out of umbrella, looking to anagrams is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've made some attempts to anagram it with other likely things, and I've not, had any success with that. But I do find it interesting that it contains the word bull. There's not that many. I mean, there's a lot of words that contain the word bull all mixed up. But I mean, the word umbrella itself only appears in room 20. Where? In room 10. That's the only place it appears. I did a search of the text, and it only appears once in room 10. So that's kind of interesting. And, I was sort of looking around for other objects that had the letters of bull in them that were depicted without being named. And I actually came up with a few of them, and I forgot to write them down, which was too bad. One of them was belly button. And there's actually 2 belly buttons in the maze. There's one in room 41, where there's also a bullfrog, which obviously has the word bull in it. And then there's also one in room 29. with the guy standing on his head is showing his belly button. Anyway,
Plus, his inverted feet and their shadows against the canvas kind of look like the Minotaur's horns, if I do say so.
I agree with you, Andrew, which is not surprising to anybody.
Vince just shivered. There are no belly buttons in room 7. I'm disappointed. Yeah, nobody's showing any skin in room 7.
No.
It's lame.
No, it's true.
Monk must keep them all in line.
I mean, we literally have bull horns in room 7. But,
oh yeah, never mind.
You know, and then we have whatever. There's a lot of bull things. We know that. But I wondered if it was just a property of the word that had made it special. That it was, you know. I didn't actually search for this, but it may be the only word used in Maze that contains all the letters for bull.
Wow. I'm sure there's a word.
It would be it would be kind of a weird thing to do. So
the only other thing I can think of is that the word bull, you could certainly pull off some kind of tree F-hour thing with bull and somehow signaling with the letter B, and you could get bulb, as for instance the extremely prominent bulb in room 8. That's just
light bulb. Light bulb has the letters bull in it. Light bulb.
Oh, okay.
Right. That was another one that I found. Yeah, light bulb.
Because is there maybe in 35? I'm looking at light bulbs that are as prominent as the one in room 8. Certainly in 35.
But it's not called a light bulb in that room. It's called a bulb. So
yeah, but it says table.
Table.
There you go.
I mean, we already did our episode where we found all the bull things, but
I mean, you know what? Single bulb also has that L that you're looking for, so
but that would ruin my argument. I mean, I did start this, I have to admit, because I was talking about umbrellas with Vincent before we had this chat, and he said he didn't think that umbrella appeared in the text, and I didn't think so either until I searched. So you know, before I searched, I was like, oh, maybe there are no words in Maze that contain the letters bull. Wouldn't that be cool? But no, umbrella is actually there. The other thing I was sort of looking around for was
nobody says it though.
It's important in art, and you know, knowing that Manson is into the surrealists, or you know, having sort of gleaned that Manson has been inspired by the surrealists. I was thinking of, I brought my little Magritte book, my Rene Magritte book.
Sweet.
This is a famous painting of Magritte's called Hegel's Holiday. I don't know. It's, you know, he uses a lot of imagery that Magritte uses. I have sort of come to believe that Magritte was an influence on him.
Yeah, he does have a lot of bowler hats and umbrellas.
Yeah, just sort of the idea of these everyday mundane objects that take on a feeling of significance, or even, you know, some kind of ominous import.
Yeah.
In the rooms. And that also happens in surrealist paintings as well, you know, that these mundane everyday things take on these strange, otherworldly, dreamlike qualities based on how they're presented in the paintings.
Yeah, they're depicted realistically, but in an environment other than its natural one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite of my Magritte's is like a room, and there's this giant apple that just completely fills the room.
Yes, he did like a whole series of those.
Or the train coming through the fireplace. Also, stuff like that. Or
surely
this is a good one. I really like this one.
yeah, the mirror image that's still the back of his head.
Yeah.
Very creepy. Very Us by Jordan Peele. Let me share the screen for a second. I think surely this must be the one that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is, the bottom left.
The listening.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very ominous.
he did a bunch of those. There's one with like a huge rose. There's some interesting ones where there's a room, and it's the same room in 4 frames, like a comic strip. But in only one of the frames, there's a guy sitting at the table. But in all the other frames, I guess he's like, most of the time, the reality of this room is that nobody sits in it. The guy's only there for his breakfast or whatever. And then for the other, 23 hours, this room's empty.
Right.
A message that has less relevance in these quarantine times when all of my rooms are seeing quite a bit more mileage than they ordinarily would.
So true. That's why we have to escape to Maze sometimes.
Boy, I feel like there could be a whole sequel to this one that's just looking for like sun and rain imagery, because boy, there's a ton of it, and like storm imagery.
We could do other objects in Maze. I think it's a pretty fruitful line of work. If we talk about, say, paintings, like that's a big one.
Right. And
whether they have, like, for example, well, this is not really a painting, but I think in room 30, no, that's not a good example. I was going to say the F-hour tree. It's not a real tree, and so you shouldn't trust it, but doesn't really make sense.
One that I really want to interrogate is, and it ties back to room 8, but it's in another one. One of my favorite rooms, the fireplace, room 18. I don't remember if anybody has ever really given a good explanation as to why there's a bowling pin specifically in that room. And people have tried to do a whole people have tried to spin a whole bowling theme out of elements in room 8, but I just don't, unless either of you can correct me, I don't remember any good explanation for, like, people try to use it as a single object to like signal the digit 1 or something, but like, why is it specifically a bowling pin? I don't know if anybody has.
The best one I've heard, I don't know who came up with it, I don't know, the idea of the O from the hat brim going together with a pin to be open, because the door you're supposed to take is the open one.
Oh, no, I like that. That is very Manson-y. That's quite Manson-y.
It's kind of Manson-y, right? And then, you have this big open mouth that's also there, and it's sort of, I don't know.
I wish that the two elements were closer together, but...
let's not forget, too, the bowling pin is also a repeating object in Maze. It's also in room 8.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was originally saying, is like tying it back to where in room 8, people try to motivate the fact that it's a bowling pin in certain ways. But like, I like it. So that seems like the best observation I've heard of it as to why that object that's there in 18 happens to be a bowling pin specifically.
And someone has also pointed out that duck pin bowling, like they talk about ducking behind a curtain, and duck pin bowling is a thing. The pins do not look like that pin, so I don't know.
Well, maybe it was a thing back in Manson's era. Horse drawn carriages.
It's still his era. I like this room. Okay. You see the bull face?
Well, hold on. I'm going to pin your... I'm going to go to speaker view, and I'm going to pin
bull face. Man, you're going to see bull faces in everything now, ever since...
I know. But I think this one's pretty good. So the dragon nose, like the dragon is the nostrils, right?
Yeah, I kind of see it. I can imagine it.
Sure.
And the eyes are the eyes, obviously, and then sort of flanking the mouth is the horns. Yeah, and they actually look like the horns of the Minotaur at Knossos. There's like sort of a famous whatever edifice or statue that is just horns.
I like this.
Those are my thoughts on 18. Oh, the other thing about open, Andrew, so you probably remember this, but if you play those notes, right, the notes that are above the open door, you get bing bong, like it's the interval that is the doorbell interval, the classic doorbell interval. Nice.
And what about what happens when you play the other one? Do you keel over and die? Is it some sort of death chord?
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Is it a tritone? I can't remember if it's a tritone or not, which is the devil's chord.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like an interesting thing to find out from that commenter. I can't remember his name. He's like a new guy who's commenting on room 26 about tritone, the devil's chord. It's very interesting about this chord that is, I think it's like
it's like
like
4 octaves, or not 4 octaves, four spaces.
4 steps, yeah. 4 little steps or whatever. Or is it?
But no, room 3,
anyway.
that's not a tritone. That's not a tritone on room 3, so that's something else.
Yeah, no, it's a third.
Is it all those notes at the same time?
Oh, door 3? No, I have no idea what that is.
Is that even real? If that was like fake fake music notation, then maybe that's a clue. It doesn't exist.
It's real. You can play that on a piano. I think it would just sound ugly. I could try it at some point. I could try it.
Yeah, try it.
I think it would sound bad. Just looking at it, I think it would be discordant.
Sarah, you would like, there's a very old, very strange and visually whimsical comic strip called Gustav Verbeek, called The Upside Downs, in which every iteration is, in fact, I probably have the book.
Cool.
For those who enjoy visually playful art in a sort of Mansonian vein, in this sequence of strange, creepy, you can probably already begin to see what the conceit is if you look at these 2 characters, one of whom is ostensibly a strange, a strangely shaped woman, but if you flip it over, they sort of have traded places. Yeah. Well, indeed, the conceit of the, I'll see if I can find the one that has a bull in it. The conceit is that in every...
I like better than an upside down bull.
Right? I figured it would really tickle your fancy. Each page is 6 panels, but it tells a 12-panel story in which you merely need to flip it over in order to continue. Well, I can't seem to find the bull in particular, but sort of you read the whole thing like this. There's little captions to tell the whole story, and then you just flip it over, and then you're reading the, I don't remember this one. You're just reading the other.
Cool.
Yes. So for those who are interested in that kind of like I mean, a lot of it, obviously, as you would imagine, there are a ton of like really like things that do not translate well to being flipped upside down, but you have to be like, okay, I get what you were sort of going for, maybe. Like, but there are a lot of like little like dodges and things like that. But overall,
I'm sure some are better than others.
Sure, of course. But then we get used to that as Maze fans. We get used to that. But I just feel like it might tickle that sort of.
Very forgiving. We're very forgiving. When we like an idea, we're very forgiving.
Very nice.
That's cool. Thanks, Andrew.
Definitely.
I'll check that out.
Does anybody have any questions about this first edition version of Maze with the?
Oh, I'm so excited that you got that. That's really amazing.
Bad boy up.
Andrew?
Sorry?
Did you see that?
I didn't see the unboxing. Please, I'm pinning you. Please, what's it? Win $10,000. See inside.
Oh my
That's
God.
right.
About the
direction page.
I was under the impression that the contest page like had its own page, but it doesn't. It's directly next to the directions, which is kind of weird. They were like saving paper, and then the back is where he has to my family.
I see.
So they put the copyright on the back. Well, they probably just wanted people to see the contest information right up front.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense to have it right by the direct. That's pretty cool.
I haven't looked to see if there's anything different. I doubt there is, like typos or something, but I haven't seen anything.
Make sure that, check the period.
Check the what?
The missing period in room 27. Is it still missing?
Yeah.
We're trying to tell them. Trying to tell them?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no period.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really tell you anything because if anything, the later editions would have been corrected, not the original. The original ones wouldn't have been correct, and then, later ones being incorrect. But.
Well, just tell us if there are any differences, like stuff that he put in, but that he thought like he made the whole thing too easy, so he decided to like remove those elements. Like, tell us if there's anything in this OG cut.
Yeah, there's a secret message on page 25 that says the guide is the Minotaur. I can't really read it.
Yeah, your UV light. You might find out things you didn't want to know about that book.
No, there's one thing. It's on page 24 is a little faded. It seems more faded than the other copy I had.
Yeah.
Oh, see if you can find. Is there a door out of room 24?
He put the door in, but then he changed his mind later.
Yeah, it's a very faded.
Oh.
No, yeah, it's just another maze.
It's cool though, Alex. You got a piece of maze history there.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely do. It's the American one. I really wanted the Canadian one, but this one is, printed in the United States of America.
Well, did they print the contest one in Canada? Did they
I
have?
don't. Well, they might. I think they might have, because it says that it says on the back page, published simultaneously in Canada by Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston of Canada Limited.
Okay.
So but the thing is, on Amazon, whenever you try to get used books on Amazon, 99% of them come from the States. So that's fine with me. I mean, it was only like $15 or something, which is like a copy of New Maze. So you might as well get the first edition.
Yeah,
If
that's amazing.
New Maze is, pooched, get a new one. Get that one specifically. It's got the picture is different from if you're thinking of getting one.
It looks really good shape too. Nice.
I
think I even got my money back because it took so long to ship that they refunded me. Pretty sure. Maybe it was for something else, but I think it was for that.
But if you're watching this, you literally can't afford not to order one.
There you go. You get a free copy of the first edition Maze. Play the contest again.
Yeah.
What $10,000 converts to in today's money?
Yeah, we'll give you all the money that we said umbrella this episode.
Yeah.
I can't believe that there are no belly buttons in room 32. None of these statues has a visible belly button.
Maybe it's navel and it has some kind of a.
There is almost like a little bit of a happy trail visible on the bearded statue in 32. I gotta say, but maybe that's just the shading.
Oh, what? Oh, a happy trail. Oh my God, that's funny. I think it's noteworthy that there are as many as 2 belly buttons in Maze. Like, I think that's kind of remarkable.
The potato kind of has a belly button in 34.
It drove me crazy trying to think about why there might be button mushrooms in a belly button and what that could possibly mean.
Oh, sure.
How many belly buttons does a Minotaur have? So how long have we been live here?
I know. I think we've run out of steam and umbrellas.
How long have we been dead here would be a better question.
Well, I don't know. I think we could do a sequel, maybe not on umbrellas, but obviously something else. Maybe, I don't know.
I think weather is an interesting one to talk about. I think that could be a very rich one. And Greg did say he wanted to join us, and hopefully we can get him to come on next time.
Yeah,
nice to talk to Greg again.
Well, in the meantime, I guess we'll have to say goodnight for now then, huh? If we've exhausted this topic.
Fun. I think so. I think we've said all we need to say on umbrellas.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for tuning. I'm talking, of course, not to YouTube, but thank you guys for joining me. But I'm not saying goodbye to you just yet. But thank you everyone for tuning in. We will catch you next time we cross paths in this circling, spiraling, dividing, whatever it is, coiling, architectural monstrosity. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.